flip the script today, and we're going to interview you. You've been doing these awesome interviews with so many great people that we want to learn a little bit about you.
Can you believe what he just did? I invite him on an interview, and he flips the script, and now he's interviewing me. I'm happy to do it. Let's do it.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. So, how did you get into this industry? What attracted you to it?
Oh boy. Long story short, I went to school to be a music producer and a sound engineer. So I'm a music guy. I'm not a construction guy at all. I went to college. I got an internship with the Howard Stern show. It was it was a pool of 35 candidates. We all interviewed. It was me and one other person who got the internship, and I got to work every morning at 3 a.m. I was supposed to be there at 4 a.m. I made sure I was there an hour early, and I left after everybody. That was basically like my way of competing with my peers. I did that, and I got a part-time job. Fast forward a little bit, I got a full-time job. So I was working at Sirius Radio, which they merged with Sirius XM, and I was working on the Howard Stern channels, producing ancillary radio shows for his channel, Howard 101. A lot of fun, not a lot of money. So I was given an opportunity to work for Shade 45, which is Eminem's radio station. I liked that opportunity a lot because the way it was pitched to me was that I was a perfect fit for the program because I could bring all the stuff that we were doing at Howard over to Shade 45, which is pretty much just very raw, controversial, unedited radio. And I could, bring my music expertise to the space as well. So I took that position, and I was promised a certain dollar amount. I didn't get that dollar amount, and so I became bitter. A good friend of mine, Pat Mattia, said I should interview at the company he was working for in Manhattan, which was Legacy Builders, and I laughed because I didn't have any interest in construction. I had no skill in construction. I couldn't build anything. But he explained the whole kind of business to me, and we had a meeting one night, and he was telling me about how the submittal process works and how everything's digitized now, and then he started to talk about estimating, and I was intrigued by the estimating aspect of it. So I interviewed with Legacy Builders. They basically talked about radio with me for an hour, and they asked me specifically, like, can you even hang a picture, was one of the actual questions that I received. And I told him no. I said, listen, this is what I do, this is what I'm good at, and if you see the potential fit, I'm open to hearing it. He called me the next day and said, I bet you're surprised to hear from me, which I was. And he said, I am going to offer you double of whatever you're getting paid right now at Sirius Radio, to be the admin in my estimating department. And I took the job. So I took a shot. So that's basically how I got into the space.
I love that. You talked about how you weren't handy and you couldn't hang a picture, and I feel the same way. My wife's always ragging on me because I own a large construction company, but
Yep.
I'm not the handiest person.
Same.
Are you still not handy? Do you do stuff around the house? Are you able to?
No. My girlfriend had some pictures to hang the other day, and she asked me if I could ask Anthony, who works for me, if he would be interested in doing it. So no, I'm not very handy. I did my own deck and my own front porch, which I thought was great. It took me like a month to do it, but outside of that, no, I'm not handy at all.
So then, what are the qualities that are most important to have in order to successfully run a construction company?
So, a bunch, right? First of all, I'm a creative entrepreneur. That's what I am at heart. So if you take me out of construction and you put me into any other business, like, I carry the same confidence, and I'm always leading with creativity. I don't like to live inside of a box, and I have a vision, and I will do whatever it takes to achieve that vision. So that's the entrepreneurial side of it. From a business point of view, that stuff just gets learned. And the way that I got as far as I have gotten is I always pretended like the company I was working for was my company, and I took that extremely far. Like, I delusionally imagined that the companies I worked for were my companies. So at Legacy Builders, I was working insane hours, which is not healthy, and I don't want people to do that or recommend people to do that, but I was working insane hours, and I would never allow us to lose money on a job. And if we were ever losing money on a job, I would be as resourceful as I possibly could to solve that problem and make sure I never brought that up the ladder. And then I really just learned how to operate a business from being at Montana Contracting and being close to Joe Montana and sitting next to him at pitch meetings and dealing with, client challenges and all that other stuff. So, you learn the business as you go. You learn business in general as you go. I read a lot of books. I have a business coach. I watch podcasts. I soak in as much information as I can, and that's pretty much all the pieces to it.
Work-life balance is a buzzword people are often talk about. I'm a
Yeah.
believer that there's no such thing. I believe that, I have a newborn at home now, and I love my family, and I love going home to see them, but I own a business. I'm trying to grow a business. It's never going to be balanced. It's going to be one way or another, but I'm a believer that when you're there, be present. Be present in the moment. It's not about quantity of time, it's quality of time. I know you've got a family yourself, and
do.
you have kids you love very dearly.
100%.
Can you touch on work-life balance?
Yeah, I can. I disagree, right? I think there's a choice. Like, do you want a work-life balance or do you not? If I wanted my construction company or my podcast or any other thing that I'm doing to be more successful, I know what the answer is. It's just to place more of my focus and attention on it. But there's a price to pay for that. And when you have a family, you have to be present for your family while you're there, but it also takes a certain amount of time. And if you're getting home at night, 6:30 or after, and you're burnt out, you're not showing up for your family the way that you're going to need to show up for them, and you're going to pay the price for that in one way or the other. So I actually have a very strong opinion about that. I also am trying to show and prove that you don't need to work long hours to build an extremely successful general contracting company. We have core values here at Montana Contracting. Our first core value is family first. I live and breathe by that. Nobody here is allowed to miss an event for their kids for work. It's not allowed. I force people to take vacations, even if they don't want to use their vacation time. It's not a choice. You have to take vacation. And, we close the doors and people aren't leaving at 5 o'clock. People are putting time in if they need to, if we have deadlines or deliverables due, but nobody here is working at 6:30. I will kick everybody out of here, and I don't want it. So that's the culture that we have. We're growing as aggressively as we choose to grow. We will hit every goal that we have set forth for ourselves, and nobody will sell their souls to do it.
You talked about how you kind of sold your soul to do it early on in your career with the early morning hours and the late nights. Do you think there's a time and place for it in your lifespan? Like when you're
absolutely.
just starting, that's when you do it?
I think you do it as much as you decide to do it, understanding what price you're paying for it, right? If you're in your 20s and you don't have a family and you're dedicating your life to work, great. You're going to be successful. You're going to have failures in your friendships. You're going to have failures in your personal life. You may have failures when it comes to your health. But those are the decisions that you make as an adult, and so there's always a price to pay. Do I think people should do it? I don't. It doesn't matter what I think. It's almost just like factual to me. If I ask you what are your goals, and your goal is to, make $1 million by 35, well, you better shut everything out and start working your ass off. I mean, that's really all there is to it. So it's better to do it when you don't have things that are important to you to lose. But I still think that if you're efficient and intelligent in your approach, that you don't have to actually do that at any age, if I'm being honest. I think there's an argument to be made that it's not necessary, and that after 10 hours of work, you're not really moving the needle too much.
I'm assuming that you have yearly goals both for your business, for your personal life, that you may have a 3-year goal plan, 5-year goal plan. What mechanisms do you utilize to stay focused and to ensure that you're checking in on, are we achieving the tasks that are going to allow us to get to those goals?
Yeah, good question. So, from a business point of view, I I use something called 90IO, and it's a website, and it's an umbrella essentially that allows me to place all of my goals into that, and then we use we use different buzzwords, right? We use OKRs, right? So we'll have a couple of rocks. A rock is defined as something that typically takes 6 or more weeks to accomplish, and under that rock are different steps that we're going to take, and and so we basically plot out a path towards larger goals by working backwards from rocks and different to-dos. I have a hour and a half meeting every week with my 2 partners, and we use this to hold each other accountable and or help each other if we need help with our goals. But that's pretty much the I would say the mechanism that I'm using to accomplish my goals.
I feel like this is an industry with a lot of meetings, right? You've got that meeting, you've got subcontractor meetings on each job, you've got financial meetings with your office, you've got foreman's meetings. Do you ever feel like there are too many meetings? And how do you make the most of everybody's time when those meetings are happening?
Yeah, I know. Yes, I think that meetings are tough, right? If you don't meet at all, then there's a lack of communication that occurs, and then there's repercussions for that. I think more importantly than quantity of meetings, it sometimes comes down to duration of meetings. So if we're going to have a meeting, I would recommend having a clear-cut agenda, and then giving yourself a time frame that you're not allowed to pass. I think 15, 20, and 30-minute meetings are more valuable than 1-hour meetings. And I think so. It's really just about strategizing the meetings and making sure that you're being productive and effective inside of those meetings.
You said you have a business coach, and you mentioned Mr. Montana earlier.
Yep.
Do you have any real mentors that have helped you in your career that, and how do you think it's important to have?
Yeah. I've never had somebody who, would say like I'm his mentor. And I think people have. I'm happy for them, but I just surround myself with anybody who can do anything better than I can, and I have no issue being humble, vulnerable, and asking for as much help as I possibly need. And I think that a lot of people have too much pride, or they think that it'll show poorly on them to ask for help. One of the most, who have been really good mentors to me have been architects on projects. I've figured out a way to develop very good relationships with architects, and they see things from a completely different lens than we do as general contractors sometimes. So asking them, hey, like, how did you come up with this? How do you look at this situation? Like, what is your viewpoint on this? That has, that's been very valuable. So a lot of the architects that I've worked with, and then just different people who I, work around here, everybody, honestly, both of my partners have been, mentors in what they do. The purpose of my podcast, the Building Tomorrow Show, is to interview people and learn from them. So, I've basically made anybody available to be my mentor.
We're going to take a break real quick, and I'm gonna recoup. This is good so far.
This is fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good. I know he's good at this.
No, I just came blank. But I'm
I know,
getting
it's a
back
really good
into it.
question. Yeah, no doubt.
I know you are always looking to hire great people. You're actively interviewing.
Yep.
There's a new generation of people coming through this industry, some of which have really great futures, others that are almost trying to move too quickly, right? Like, I've seen it where I think somebody has a great personality. They might not have experienced something or enough construction just because they're so new in their career, but they're looking for, a hefty salary and a big title. What would you say to the younger generation coming up into this and trying to make a name for themselves?
I can tell you what you don't want to, where you don't want to end up, right? Where you don't want to be. I got into this business when construction was booming, and what I saw was a lot of senior project managers who were very loud, but they didn't have any skills. They had experience, they knew construction, but they didn't have any skills. So I would watch them delegate all of their work to 25-year-old assistant project managers who were just getting dumped on all day. And without those assistant project managers, they're not valuable anymore. So my advice is to focus on the skills. Focus on being able to do everything that you need to be able to do in your role, right? I know we touched, like for an APM, you're gonna be a project manager, right? Like, but you don't want to be a project manager who can't do the job without help. And the way that the business is going with softwares like Autodesk or Procore, that administrative process is getting dwindled down as we go also, right? The project managers are basically typing in information to send to an assistant project manager to type into another software to send out to their customers. So not every job we have has an assistant project manager. It's not needed anymore. So my advice is to just focus on acquiring the skills. Yes, everybody wants to make more money. Should you turn down positions where you're going to make more money because, maybe you're kind of like throwing yourself into the fire a little bit? It depends. The last place you want to be is a project manager for a facility that's 28,000 square feet that you don't really have the skills to build. That's not going to be comfortable. It's not worth the money. Everybody's going to find out about you. And so if you put yourself in these positions way earlier than you should be there, you're going to regret it 100% of the time,
And when you're sitting down with a PM, what are the top 3 qualities that you're looking for?
Very good question. So the top 3 qualities that I'm looking for are, the number one quality as a project manager is, do I trust that you can represent my company correctly to my customers and the architects and everybody else and all the other stakeholders in a project? You could have all the knowledge in the world, you can have all the skill in the world, but if you don't represent me properly, you can't work for my company. So the biggest part of being a project manager is that interaction with the client end. That's number one. Number 2, thoroughness. You don't want to be a PM who is able to skim through stuff, but doesn't have the real depth that it takes to be strong in your position. And number 3 is prioritizing and efficiency. I've seen people who communicate really well. I've seen people who are very thorough, but they don't understand how to prioritize, and they don't understand how to be efficient with their time, and so they end up not being able to keep up with their work. If you can be strong at all 3 of those pillars, then you'd be a very good project manager.
No, I don't know all your core values, but how do those 3 qualities relate to your company's core values?
one of our core values is absolute accountability, right? Um, which means, and all of our core values have a couple different dimensions to them, right? So what does it mean to have absolute, or it's actually absolute ownership? I apologize. So absolute ownership means that you as a project manager, and I tell people, you need to look at a project like it's your business, right? And your business is your baby. So I run a business here, but you run a business too. What does that mean? It needs to be planned. It needs to have proper cash flow to survive. All the stakeholders need to be being communicated to in a professional and transparent way. But you need to own your position in the project, never pass the buck, and take complete accountability of what you're doing. That also means that part of your job, which is difficult to do, is to hold everybody else accountable around you, right? I don't want to go on a tangent on this, but I had a meeting the other day with my team, and I asked them, I said, guys, what do you think is the number one factor of how successful we are in our projects? And I got answers like, estimating, project management, supervision, right? And I made a case for how the architects on a project have more of an impact on how successful we are than all of us combined, and that we really need to start focusing on the art of doing business with the other stakeholders of our projects, because if they are not owning their part of the project, we cannot be successful and we will lose a lot of money. So that's one way, I guess you could say that those three pillars play into our core values. And I'll give you one other one, which is basically collaboration is key. Collaboration is one of our other core values. And you can be skilled, you can be knowledgeable, you can be a strong project manager, but if you isolate yourself and you're not collaborating with the other people that you have to collaborate with, you can't be successful. So there's a couple of examples.
Accountability is a huge word, though. Like, one of the things we hire on is people that will be able to hold themselves accountable.
Yep.
But also hold other people around them accountable. And there's a way to do it in a very professional, just it is what it is manner. But I feel like a lot of people struggle with holding others accountable. Maybe they want to be liked. Maybe they don't like an uncomfortable conversation. Can you speak on the importance of being able to have those conversations?
Yeah, 100%. It's there's two parts. One, it has to be it's cultural, and it comes from the top. So every single mistake I make, I raise my hand and I tell everybody about it. So I'll say, hey, here's the situation. We underbid the concrete on this job. Here's how I'm accountable for it, right? Here's what I did wrong in reviewing the estimate with the estimator. Here's what I'm going to do differently moving forward. Here's what the estimator did wrong. Here's what the subcontractors did wrong. Here's what we did wrong in the building connected process. So raising your hand with mistakes and telling people, like, we don't tolerate sloppiness, right? But people make mistakes and mistakes happen. So raise your hand when you make a mistake so we all can learn from it, and you can learn from it, and we can make sure that it doesn't happen again. I mean, that's pretty much how it goes.
And I'm going to leave you with one more question, and I appreciate you allowing me to flip the script here.
Yeah,
this has been
fun,
pretty
man.
awesome.
Yeah.
If your listener gains one thing from listening to this podcast, and not just this one, but all the future ones, what do you want your listener to gain?
From my podcast in general?
In general.
Yeah, look, my job, I have a couple of jobs with my podcast, but for my listeners, my job is to squeeze out the secret sauce as much as possible and deliver that to my audience, right? So the lessons will be a bit repetitive, right? And that stuff comes with just listening to successful people, which usually comes down to fundamentals and basics, right? It's hard, smart work, having a vision, seeing it through, being motivated, being disciplined, all that type of kind of soft skill stuff. But my job as the interviewer is to find out what is unique about you, how you operate your business, what's working for you, and for me to learn from it and to give that to my audience.
Love it, man. It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, Devin Kulka.
Keep being you. You're the man.
You too, bro.